to see
time.
you. Yeah, man, it's been a while.
What have you been up to?
Oh, man, where do I start? Well, actually, no, I'm going to ask you first because you're the one who just made the big move. So you're talking to me from your boat now, right?
Yeah. So I've just moved down to London last week. So I've been in London for 1 week exactly now. Yeah. I'm staying on a houseboat in the centre of London, near Islington. And it's great, man. Like, it's finally nice to have my own little space that I'm setting up. But it's funky. It's really funky living on a boat. It's kind of, you have to get used to the size. It's tiny, of course. Like, it's a tiny little canal boat. So the ceiling is too low for me. So I'm constantly having to stoop my head. Getting used to cooking and stuff like that. The oven is sort of like on an angle. So everything's just funny. But it's really fun. It's great. Yeah. The vibe here is really nice. I'm in the center, like I said, so I can walk everywhere. I brought my bike with me, so I've been cycling around London. But the thing that's really nice for me is that it's been 10 years or 11 years since I've lived in London. And so I'm seeing the city in a new way, and I'm sort of exploring it as a foreigner, in that sort of way. Like when I went to South Korea, Seoul, or when I went to Tokyo, the feeling that I had exploring those new cities is coming back to me now that I'm in London. It's really nice. It's really lovely.
Yeah, I was just looking around Google Maps before we started talking, just around like that where you are, and then just that whole area. And I've never been to the UK, but it was really fascinating. I get the impression it's quite compact. Like it's quite
London. You mean?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I feel like London is you can sort of go anywhere and there'll be everything you need. Whereas I found that in Seoul and Tokyo, if you have to go where you want to go, sort of thing. You can't just, like, if you want to go shopping, there are certain areas that you have to go for that. You can't just go wandering down random streets and find little interesting shops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like London is a lot more sort of just compact, like you say.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because I was looking through on the Street View, and there were some areas that honestly, if you didn't know better, you could almost pretend they were like a new development in Tokyo. Like, the visual culture, like really nice, obviously not the old buildings, but where there's new apartments being thrown up, and then you've got these kind of compact, narrow streets, and then there's cars parked up, and it just seems like, it's kind of, I guess, been born from that same geography of narrow, small, narrow streets and that sort of thing, and it's just kind of been modernized. But man, I'd love to come over sometime, actually.
Oh, I'd love that, man. Yeah, it'd be really good to show you around. You'd love London. You'd love it. Especially the architecture. You'd be in your element.
But yeah, man, so thank you for sharing that. For myself, I've been a little bit busy with a few things. Been working on this new New Zealand Nocturnes photo series.
Yes.
So that's coming together. So this has been something I've been working on for about 2 years now, on and off, maybe a little bit longer, actually. I was doing it whenever I came back to New Zealand during the summertime. And since I've been back permanently, it's sort of, I've had more of an opportunity to work on that. But that series is really an exploration of New Zealand houses. And I've kind of kept it a little bit under wraps for a little while, just sort of as I percolate the idea. But I was on Radio New Zealand last weekend on the national program. So I had a slot there, and they interviewed me about the series, and that was kind of kicking the thing off. So there's a couple of light boxes going up in Auckland the end of this month. So I'm going to fly up for that and the opening and that sort of thing. And then, trying to organize the bigger show for October. So we've got
sweet, man. How's that coming along?
Oh, it's a challenge. So the Auckland Festival of Photography is just it's just a couple of light boxes that they're handling all of that. That's just on the viaduct in Auckland. But the biggest show that I'm organising is in the Silo Park, which is this kind of nice redevelopment down by the viaduct. And I've got the space booked out. It's part of Art Week Auckland, which is in October. We got it for 2.5 weeks. But it's just funding it and just sort of a lot of the logistics of the show. Sort of a bit of work there.
No, absolutely, I can imagine. Yeah. So is this an art venue usually? Is it normally an art venue?
It's quite a cool redevelopment. So it's actually an old concrete silo that they've redeveloped into a venue space. So it's got all of the rigging and the rails and the power and everything that you need to run a show. But usually it's used for public events. They also shoot films there and certain things. So I went up to Auckland 2 weeks ago, and they were actually filming Power Rangers there. So I don't know what Power Rangers it was, but that's what they said. So they were out outside doing some shooting, and there's all the vans and things.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I managed to get the venue. It's quite a unique space. It's concrete, but they've had quite some high level people come through. They had Ryoji Ikeda.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had a show there for the Auckland Triennale a couple of years ago, and so it's kind of had a few people through. And I'm really excited about the space. But yeah, it's at this point in the game we're sort of 4 months out from that show. So I'm working with a good friend of mine, Graham Frost, who's curating the show, and he's helping me really work through it because there's quite a lot of moving parts. We've got a lot of things to do, but yeah, this coming together, man, and the series is really, I think it's really starting to create a discussion. We've got this kind of turning the lens onto New Zealand for a change, into my own home. It's been really instructive.
You've also had a similar experience to me in that you've come home after a long time away and you've seen your home in a new way, right? I think you talked about this on the radio show.
That's right, yeah, and it's kind of looking at it through new eyes, and it's about the same as well because I'm 10 years and you're 10 years, and it's sort of, I don't know, you really come back and you look at it in different ways. But it's been powerful, man. Like I've really enjoyed this journey so far.
Yeah, good, man. It's interesting how much you appreciate. I mean, it's a cliche, everyone says it, but when you do spend a long time away from home and then you go back, you just appreciate everything you took for granted before you left. When you're young, you just can't wait to get out of your hometown, or if it's a small place, you just want to get out as quick as possible. But growing up and seeing the world and then coming back, you're like, wow, yeah, this is lovely.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And sort of, do you know the hero's journey? Is that a thing that you've heard of?
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm not sure about the gist of it though.
I think it's sort of this idea, you go and then you come back, and it's sort of that this idea of, that there's a thing out there that you must do, but then eventually you do find yourself returning, and you return differently, and you are a different person.
Is it like The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho?
Yeah. And I mean, it's more of an allegorical thing, but in terms of it's the sort of thing that can be applied to any story in a way, and it's kind of, you see the archetypes of it, in different places. But yeah, coming back to New Zealand, coming back to Wellington, it's just a different vibe. It's a small city, really. I mean, even Auckland is different, it's a big place, as we've talked about before. But Wellington, it's sort of thank you driver, when you're on the bus, and people kind of are very polite and very nice. I
love that.
And you go around to people's houses. Like I bump into people on the street all the time that I know. And we're just, what are you up to? Oh, let's go grab a coffee. It's really chilled. You can walk everywhere. Or you just take the bus. It's a very easy life here in a way. And in fact, sometimes too easy. I get a little bit self-conscious. I'm like, man, it can't be this easy. Because there isn't that kind of that hustle, that drive. And that was sort of what forged me in Tokyo, because, you sort of sink or swim, whereas here it's a little bit more like, just
float.
Just float along, man. It's all good.
Yeah. So do you miss that about Tokyo?
I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. obviously I'm driven by nostalgia, but I get nostalgic about it sometimes. I get nostalgic about traveling, I think. I'm sort of getting, it's been a while now, this whole thing has been dragging out for a couple of years now with COVID, and it's sort of, we're starting to I'm starting to get over it in a way. And not that we can't travel as such. We've got a bubble with Australia now and a few other things, but it's still not quite normal, and it probably, I don't know if it ever will be, but that said, it was kind of like happened at the right time, I think. For me creatively, it's like, if I was going to ever take a break, it was, this was the year and last year.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, you obviously want to be a bit like secretive about upcoming stuff, but where do you see the New Zealand Nocturnes series going? Is it going to be this exhibition and then that's it, or?
Well, I mean, I guess, so at a high level, I do want to circle back to that, something we've previously talked about, which is those 3 Ps, right? The people, place, and passion, and that whole thing. Because what's been really powerful about this series, I've sort of been tinkering away on it for a little while now, but when I started working with my friend Graham, who works at the City Gallery, and he's got an extensive background in art and fine art, it really gave the project this kind of extra, it took it to another level. And so, he's working with me to create the show, to bring it together. And I really feel like it's starting to move in circles and at a level which it would never have been able to do just with myself. And what I mean by that is, right now we have this housing crisis in New Zealand. We've got a lot of questions around globalization. What does New Zealand mean? What's our place in the world? A lot of big questions. And this series really is an artistic response to that, and in so many ways. And so it really is. It feels really. It's quite big. It's quite ambitious. And so I don't know where the series will go necessarily, but I feel like it's really got legs conceptually. I really feel like it's. It could travel, and I'd love to see it go beyond New Zealand and the work. We're looking at creating light boxes for the work. I'd love to see it travel and kind of share this vision of New Zealand, which I don't think most people haven't really seen before, even locals, let alone internationally. What do you think when you think of New Zealand? It's beautiful, pristine landscapes.
Well, unfortunately, most people's idea of New Zealand is Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, and it's like, no, I mean, when you really get into it, that New Zealand has this very complicated relationship with the land. And ultimately, it all comes down to land. And if you look at the colonial history, and in a way, it's this kind of melancholic moment when you realize that all of this beautiful rolling farmland once was lush forest, And I mean, there's countless birds and species that went extinct, during the colonial period, just because, forests were just clear-felled for turning into pasture. And so we have these kind of idyllic homes, and up in Auckland, you've got these, all of the old houses are made from what they call kauri, which is a native timber. And all of the, half of Auckland is built with these kauri trees, which used to cover the, the whole place. And now there's less than 1% left, and they're these giant 500-year-old trees. In fact, the largest tree in New Zealand, I think, it's Tane Mahuta. I think it's about 7 or 8 meters diameter. It's a huge tree, and it's very spiritual for the Maori people. And there's not many of them left, and so there's this kind of melancholy in the land and in the structures themselves, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And even Wellington, which has got a lot of early 20th century structures, a lot of it's totara or rimu housing, which again is a native timber, and so it's this kind of, in a way, the land is embodied in these structures. And so on so many levels, it kind of, it responds to these kind of questions. And so I feel, I guess, really like this responsibility to do it. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's like, it's kind of got, and again, you know, Graham's helped me sort of really elicit this idea, which was kind of there in a way, but, you know, trying to really bring that out. And I think asking the question, you know, around what home means, and looking at these buildings in a way. And so in a way, it's been quite formative for the series, or for my, I guess, broader work, which is looking at Danchi, looking at, you know, Bangkok Phosphors, looking at these different photo series, and really realizing that the thing that connects them all together is home. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really appreciate that. Is that the sort of crux of the whole New Zealand Nocturnes series, like this idea of the building material coming from the land and coming from the history of New Zealand?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one, aesthetically, that's one sort of thread that I've been exploring, and there is a lot of other layers. You know, there's this kind of a lot of the buildings are quite old that I'm shooting, and it's this kind of decay. You know, this kind of it's a very New Zealand concept. These kind of very moist, damp kind of you know, weather. It's I mean, it's a little bit hard to explain, but if you're here, you know what I mean. And it's like you're in the hills, and it's just constantly damp, and things start to rot away. And so you've got these like houses, and they're sort of slowly being reclaimed, you know, by the land, and
by nature, yeah.
And then we try to fight it, and we paint them up, and we sell them, and they go for $2 million. And it's this kind of just these different ideas, and the images in a really succinct way, I think, capture that. And it's been really powerful to work on the series. It's been probably like the most in depth I've gone. Like, I think I've shot a lot more than I did for Bangkok and Danchi. You know, I've done a lot more travel to get this series together. I've still got a bit of travel to do. Because there's also, like, throughout the country, there's also very different vibes. You know, like you go down south, and it's totally different.
So you will be touring the whole country, or is that your goal?
So for shooting, for photographing, I've done a lot of it. I've travelled a little bit, and I've still got maybe a few places I'd like to go to. But yeah, the idea is to kind of capture the whole place, and kind of in a way, it's showing places where no one would know where it is. It's this kind of nowhere street, and it's generic enough that you know the buildings and the kind of the icons of the images, they kind of, everyone knows what they are. You can kind of recognize them. You would have seen them somewhere, but you can't quite pin it. And unless you knew the house, and even if it was your house, I mean, the way I've shot it, you know, which you'll see is, it's very hard to even know where it is. It's this kind of dreamlike quality.
Yeah. A different dimension, like in between dimension or something. Yeah,
and that was where the Nocturnes name came from, because it was like this idea of kind of nighttime and the songs of the night, and obviously nighttime. I love shooting, or you know, I'm attracted to shooting at nighttime, and it's this kind of in between world. So yeah, man, that's sort of that New Zealand Nocturnes, which is coming together, and we'll just sort of have to see where it goes.
That's amazing, man. I'm really excited to see. I mean, you've sent me some photos over already, which look fantastic, of course. I hope you can come over to London one day and show it.
Yeah. Well, we're really keen. And again, this is, in a way, it's this kind of beautiful moment where, as I said, you know, 3 Ps, you know, working with the right people. And in fact, it kind of started with this passion. I was working on this series, and then Graham came into my life, and we started working together on this thing. And he really gets it, and you know, he's got this fine art background, and so we really see this ability to take the show and be like, all right, let's take it to the UK. You know, let's take it to let's take it to Melbourne. You know, and being able to kind of negotiate the series at that level, which is it's a challenge. You know, you don't just say, hey, you know, here's my stuff. You know, it's like there's certain there's a process which you don't necessarily know until you've done it, about how to get the work out there and that. So I'm learning a lot of that at the moment, which is, it's really instructive. And yeah, we'll just, as I said, sort of see where it goes.
See how it goes. Great. And about Graham, like, is it sort of like, is Graham a mentor relationship to this project? Or
it's really funny, man. It's one of these things that only would happen in Wellington, but I just met him through a friend of a friend sort of a thing, but he literally lives next door to me. Like, I can see his house from my balcony, and where we're staying, and because Wellington's such a small place, and so we there's this kind of stickiness where we in a way, this is something that I think I never had in Tokyo, where you bump into someone and it's this like random event, it's kind of this atomic particles sort of hitting each other. But in Wellington, it's so easy to kind of just see people again and again, and you build these relationships. And because we're sort of the same age, I think we both sort of inspire each other. And he's working on some really cool stuff as well. And he sort of said, "Look, Cody, I'd love to help you curate the series." And it sort of went from there. And it's sort of really taking it to another level, because as the artist, you sometimes get a little bit too close to the work. And so you need someone who can kind of pull you out and be like, hey, kind of editing it in a way and curating it and saying, okay, well, I think we could do this.
Sure.
And it really sort of brings it sort of tightens it up in a way.
And just gets it out of your head, I guess, because otherwise everything's in your head and it's through your filter bubble. It's nice to see another pair of eyes.
Yeah, so I think that's really kind of the important thing about, I guess, socializing the work and kind of having people involved and sharing it with people. And again, being in a situation like here in Wellington where, I can literally be like, hey, I'll pop around, for a coffee, and we'll talk about this idea I'm having in a way that I always felt when I was in Tokyo, that was like, it never happened that way. You've got to travel an hour to go see somebody. I don't know what's it like in London. Is it a bit more?
I imagine. I'm kind of outside of that world at the moment. I'm, sort of trying to work my way in at the moment.
Back in, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like, I don't know, especially when I was in university, I was always going to visit people who were creators and musicians, artists and everything. And, we would go through work together and talk about it and create together and stuff like that. But I don't know whether that was because of London or whether that was because it was university. University is a special bubble where everybody's sort of like, helping each other and everything. But I really hope that was because it was London. And I really want to get back into that kind of that routine of having artist friends and get creativity from outside of myself. I want to go see some live music. I want to make some connections. It's difficult at the moment. We're still in lockdown. But things are opening up slowly. So the Monday just gone, we opened most indoor shops and like museums and stuff like that mostly opened on Monday. And on the June 21st, we'll be opening up again. So we're sort of on the way out of lockdown.
Yeah.
And I think this summer is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, man. I think everyone's looking forward to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned university because, as you know, I've just done a paper up at Victoria, and I'm just finishing up. Probably got another week or so left on that. And it's been interesting because I like my hypothesis, which I posited to you, which was like, well, it's been 10 years, let's go back and give it a go. It's if I was to reflect on that, we've just had our kind of final audiovisual test and that sort of thing, and that was for sort of entry level Chinese. It was excellent. I'm really glad I did it. But at the same time, it is different, when you're going back. And I think the university has changed quite a lot. I think, if I'd done it 2 years ago, it would have been different. But obviously with COVID, the place is just really dead. Like it's empty. It's empty halls, very small classes. There's no international students. It's sort of, when I was there the first time around 10 years ago, it was like, yeah, this place is pumping. There was a language center. There was things happening there, and they're closing a lot of that stuff down. And it was. So I'm glad I've done it, and it's been really great. But at the same time, it is this kind of melancholic second time round.
I felt that a bit in Tokyo as well. And now that I come back to London, I really see it. Walking through the centre of London, it's just dead. And I've never seen that in my life,
Yeah, so, but it was good. I'm glad I did it. And it's definitely, the more it was a vehicle ultimately for learning the language and kind of getting getting some foundations down, and it's really coming together. And I've got the textbooks, and I've got a few friends now that we're kind of building it up, and it really, I don't know, I find it very satisfying to learn a new language and to kind of start along that journey. So I'm looking forward to sort of seeing what I can do next to kind of continue that.
Yeah, man. I mean, if anybody is capable of building a community around them, it's you. So, I think you're gonna build Wellington up and attract all of these artists to you.
Yeah,
that's gonna be fantastic, man.
Yeah,
have such a good time.
Yeah, I think we are having we do have good times already, and hopefully we have some more good times to come. But yeah, so I got a topic for you. So social media, the ongoing.
Yeah, so I guess you're talking about like a couple of weeks ago. We both had a little break from social media. Deleted Instagram, deleted Twitter from our phones, and it was great, man. It was really good. I didn't miss Instagram at all. I missed Twitter a little bit because I don't know. I use Twitter to find out about things that are going on in the world and news and interesting stuff. Instagram is just like a shit show of people posing, right?
Are you still off both of them, or are you back on?
No, so I went back to Instagram 2 weeks later. So I had a 2-week break and then went back to it, and that's only because I can use Instagram to find places in London really easily, cafes and restaurants and stuff like that. It's great for checking all of that stuff. I mean, every cafe, every restaurant, every bookshop, every museum has an Instagram, right? So it's really good for that. So I have got back on it. But I'm using it in a different way. Like, I used to get really sucked into the doom scrolling. And just scroll all the way through. And now I'm so much better at stopping myself immediately if I notice that I'm doing that. Yeah. So if I just see that I'm scrolling down and not liking anything, not commenting on anything, not interacting with it, then that's a waste of my time, like literally a waste. So what I just stop myself automatically. And if I click on the little like discover tab or something like that, I just close the app immedially, because that discover tab is dangerous, because it just grabs you, sucks you in.
I'll tell you what, man. We both started this at the same time, and I've just pretty much stayed off it since then, man. In fact, the first time I logged into either of them was I logged in to share that Radio New Zealand interview that I did the other week, and then I logged out again. Like, honestly, man, I've had enough. I don't need it. And it's kind of funny in a way, because I kind of got sucked into it. It's like I was never that kind of person. I've always been extremely anti. I don't even know what you call it, but status quo. For a long time I was off the grid. Like, I didn't even have a phone, man. My first year living back in Tokyo, like properly after uni, I didn't even have a phone, man. I was just like, I had a SIM card and like a Garagate, like, on those flip phones, just so that I could actually, sign up to internet and accounts and things, bank accounts and that sort of thing. But I'd never used it. You couldn't use it for anything. And I remember I used to write things down in a diary and then have to memorize maps and things just to get anywhere. And it was just really powerful. It's kind of like a little challenge, But and even today I went out and I just left the phone at home. But yeah, man, I don't need it, and it's a waste of time. And I've been trying to claw back my focus a little bit. I've been listening to a lot of new music, watching a lot more films. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find that if I'm working or doing something and I'm listening to music, it's one thing. But to actually just sit down and enjoy an album from start to finish,
it's rare, isn't it? But it's a good thing. It's great.
Yeah, man. I mean, have you been listening to anything new lately?
recently discovered another Japanese artist that I really like. She's called Yoshida Minako, and I mean it's just it's just city pop basically, so it's like real Japanese city pop. But I really like city pop because it puts me in a good mood, man. Like the weather is awful here at the moment. We're in this sort of transition period between like wet spring and like warm summer, so the weather's awful, but listening to the city pop, it's just like, yeah, I'm getting in the mood.
back into it. Yeah, man. I've been really getting into that period, like 70s and 80s Japanese stuff. So I've got I started listening to Hiroshi Yoshimura, who's got this ambient stuff, and then a couple of days ago, I discovered Hako Yamasaki, who's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Love her.
So I listened to her whole album Akane like last night. So, just sitting there, like it's like the old days, man, where it's like you put the thing on and you just listen, and it was like, wow, this is something phenomenal, and it just had everything. That album Akane, like it just had everything. It was like I think it's like 1981, something like that. But it was like Enka meets kind of electric light orchestra, synths meets kind of vocal, acoustic guitar, kind of Japanese folk songs. It was just this perfect mix, and I was like, damn, this needs my full attention.
She has an album called Aruite, which you must listen to as well. Yeah, the title track from that album is just. She's so emotional. It's amazing.
Yeah, and actually, if you search for her name, it comes up with an album Wanderer, or maybe it's the song. So I'm going to actually go and have a listen to that after this. But yeah, I've just been getting into this stuff, man. And in a way, it's funny because I'm kind of becoming like one of my old mentors from the old days. I'm kind of turning into this like shadow version of him because he had all these like old albums and stuff and old books, and I've been collecting books like crazy, man. I got all these a lot of these new books and novels and stuff, and just been I've been reading. I try to read every day now.
Good man. Do you have a time, like a time when you like to read?
Yeah, before bed.
Before bed.
So I have a little lamp by my bed, and I sort of slide into bed and just sort of let myself drift off with something. Usually fiction. I've been reading this collection of Chinese short stories in English translation, but sort of from the Deng Xiaoping period, so like the 1980s, kind of sort of like just after China had opened up. So these very inspired. There's this one story, The Herdsman, and it's like this kind of allegoric story of this country boy who kind of gets. He goes and studies in the city, and then he gets he gets in trouble. He gets sort of named and shamed and gets sent to work back in the countryside. And it's just this kind of, very reflective of sort of that the history of China and just sort of the things that had happened there. But very kind of allegoric and kind of epic, but short, a short story. And then reading a lot of stuff. Like I've been going back into my Murakami collection. And then I got a bit of other just nonfiction photo books and things that I've been collecting. So it's been kind of
Kawabata?
I got his. I got 1,000 Cranes sitting there, and The Master of Go. And I also read. I've recently finished again Mishima's Confessions of a Mask, and then I gave it to a friend. It's really well done. I was like, yeah, this is pretty good.
Snow. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So I've just been, just getting back into it, man. It's like, it feels really good, and it feels really good to have a space as well that's like my own. Like you can probably see in the background, I've got some photos up on the wall.
Yeah, love it.
Because I've been like this wanderer, this nomadic guy for so long, and it's like 2 Patagonia bags and a camera. But now it's like I actually got a space to sit down, and it's like, this is my stuff, Yeah, man. So that's that. But yeah, as this, coming back to the social media thing, it's like zooming out from that stuff and just kind of going back into the good stuff, not worrying what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot nicer to get off it because you have so much more time to do stuff, because you really do. It's such a cliche, but you don't realize how much time you're wasting on these apps. Yeah, and it's always like subconscious, but you just do it. You're flicking away time.
Yeah, and I think when you're a young man, it's kind of you can afford to waste time in a way. But as you get a bit older, man, it's like, man, we're coming into June. We're coming to June in a couple of weeks, man, and it's like we're halfway through the year
already. Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck have I even done?
Well, you've obviously done a lot. I mean, you've been preparing for a huge art show.
Yeah.
And I've moved down to London, which is the beginning of my journey. But what I don't want to do is get like complacent and sort of like settled. And, I want to get out and explore and see the city.
Keep the knife sharp, Yeah.
So just going to social media for a second, or staying on this subject. As an artist, as a musician, a composer, whatever I am, I have noticed a big drop off in like people listening to my music on Spotify, people not listening to my music on Bandcamp, not visiting my website. So I've noticed a big drop off in those three things since I stopped using social media. So unfortunately, that's the downside. That's the negative side, right? Because I'm not able to get my message out. I do have a newsletter, which is great, which I can send out, but I'm not going to just send out a newsletter if I have nothing to say. I want something to say, right? So there's pros and cons to not using social media. I feel way better. I feel I'm sleeping much better because I'm not scrolling through my phone before bed. But yeah, people aren't really interacting with my music. So I wonder how do you balance these two things?
Yeah, my thoughts on that, there's a time and place, and I think building engaging with people, building an audience is important. But at the same time, I think it's been really instructive with this New Zealand Nocturnes series. I haven't done any, I have not talked about it whatsoever. I've kept it on the lowdown, pretty much kicking off the media strategy with this Radio New Zealand interview last week. But even then, it's like, boom, the right people are starting to see it because it's circulating at that level, and we've got a few other media lined up, and it's like, the social media is important, but I think even for your stuff, it's like if you can kind of hermit away and from the boat, create the album, the thing that it needs to be, and you also having the people and having that place, the right people will see it, and then it's like the work will kind of get done for you in a way. And I think you can. It is important to kind of share it and connect with people who like your stuff, but there's almost like you can do it, and it gets in the way of the creative process, if you know what I mean. And I could definitely see if I hadn't have made the decision to just keep it on the lowdown, this series, because it only makes sense in its entirety, to sort of see the beginning steps of it. It's just photos of these old houses, it doesn't really mean anything. It's like I had to go through the entire creative process and kind of behind the scenes to then be able to come out and say, okay, this is it. And I guess that's a bit of a maturation of the work. Like in the old days, I just, here's a shot, it's cool, but it's like, no, actually zooming out from that. What does this really mean? What am I trying to do here? And let it simmer, and now that you're in London, you're connecting with people. I wonder if, we've talked about this before, but like, the right people will come into your life who will help you take it to the next level,
Yeah. I need another Cody, like a mentor, my next mentor.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like I think you can share stuff, but not using it as your only platform.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think so. I mean, if I zoom out and I think about it logically, I need to release an album, right? Like a physical release.
Yeah.
Then, then I've got the label backing me, who are going to be spreading it around for me. I've got something physical that I can talk about. Yeah, man.
And those relationships, all of that stuff is what I would call sort of behind the scenes, right? It's like, getting to know those people, getting a warm introduction to the right people at the right time, the right place. London, the UK is ready for SJF, it's this kind of, the moment's right. And maybe that doesn't happen for another year. Because I'll be honest, man, like with New Zealand, with Nocturnes, if it had been 2 years ago, if it had been when I had just started, I had kind of preconceptions about what I wanted to do, and it definitely wouldn't have stood up to the rigor. I couldn't have gone on the radio and talked about it for 10 minutes with these people, and I couldn't have written these stories about this, these kind of critique, that the work wouldn't stand up, and in a way it needed 2 years to just kind of come together, and there's no need to rush it, and I think zooming out again to another notch, it's like, what are we even trying to do here? Like, why are we so driven to just release, do it now? What's pushing us to kind of look so short term? Is there something that we can do a bit longer term? What's your life work going to look like?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's because of social media, isn't it? I mean, the influence of now.
Yeah. And that's why, I think taking a step back from that, and then also looking at sort of the bigger changes happening in the world with, I think we've kind of, just the way people consume media, there's this kind of attention span of a millisecond. And, it's not for everyone that they're going to sit down and listen to a 48-minute album, just straight, it's like old school, but that's what we got to do. That's the good stuff, and that will have its impact where it needs to. And it's almost this kind of false promise that you could create this thing, this immediate kind of sugary snack, and it's just gonna, there's nothing to it, And I think that's why I've always been a bit allergic to commercial work and just kind of being in that whole world. I've sort of, I don't know, man. Like, I never grew up with that. I sort of, it was always it was like a second language to me. And I was listening to a really good podcast actually. It's called About Buildings. And it's these two British. In fact, you might be keen to connect with those guys. They're two British guys. They talk about architecture and films and all sorts of stuff. And they were talking about Akira and Katsuhiro Otomo, and I mean, I didn't know, but he's actually a country boy as well. And he came to Tokyo when he was like 21 or something, or might have been 19. But he sort of arrived in Tokyo, and it's oh wow, and you see that in all of his work. It's like this kind of awe for the city, right? And in a way, it's I was talking to someone else about this, but it's like, if you compare that with, say, Wong Kar-wai or some other filmmakers who are kind of like born in the city people, their treatment of the space is totally different. And I definitely align with the Otomo kind of, side of it. But you know what I mean? Like, you had to kind of be from the outside to see that though. Whereas if you're in the kind of the fashion world, or you're in that kind of the city-centric sort of, you were always there, you're not going to see that stuff because you were in it,
like a fish in water.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in water. Yeah. About Buildings and Cities, the podcast.
That's right. Yeah, that's what. I started supporting them on Patreon. Just
nice.
No, really, because I had to drive back. My grandfather was in hospital, and I had to drive back to Hastings, my hometown, and it's about a 4-hour drive. So I was like, yeah, put on. I listened to 4 hours there was like about Andrei Tarkovsky, and 4 hours back was about Akira and Katsuhiro Otomo. So I know everything about those two guys now.
Nice, man. Oh, great. I'll check it out because it looks really nice.
Yeah, no,
I mean, this is right up your street, right? Future, past, present, film, fiction. Yeah. Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah. So that's that, man. And then what have you got? Anything else on your mind?
Yeah, there's lots of stuff. I mean, I've just started a new job, right? So I just started training for a really good coffee roastery here in London, like one of the best award-winning coffee roasteries. So most of my time is going to be taken up with that, which is fantastic. I'm really happy to join the team. The team is fantastic. The coffee they roast is great. But I don't want to. Of course it's a very creative job, but I don't want to lose sight of my music and my passion and our collaborations, and I want to keep that going.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I know the feeling, man. it's been a bit tough with me as well, just work-wise and just trying to make things happen.
Are you working?
Yeah, I mean, I got a few projects on the go, sort of freelance stuff, and I mean, it's good. Like, I'm in a good position, but it's also you're at the whim. I always say to people, I'm unemployable. Because I haven't worked as an employee for sort of 5 or 6 years now. And I mean, to go back, because I mean, it's this kind of ongoing kind of dilemma where it's like everyone I know is working just normal, and it's kind of this ideology, right? And it's hard for me to get into that because I just don't know. I don't know if I could do it again. Once you've had that taste of freedom and setting your own thing, and no matter how hard it gets, it's like it's really hard to go back for working for the man. For me, and but at the same time, it's like, well, got to keep yourself afloat. So, and so it's like you think about it, jump on the website and sort of see what's going and talk to friends and that. But it's like, I don't know, man, just if I can keep it going, because what I got going at the moment, it's pretty good. So, if I could just keep that going and just keep things ticking over and, get a few more things done, get this show sorted, and because it gives you the freedom to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. The time and the freedom to do that, to think about it.
Yeah, and I remember, man, when I used to work, when I was doing design stuff, it was like, it was, you didn't have any time for anything else. You finish work and you go home, and sleep, especially with the big hours. So, yeah, man, I don't know. It's I definitely hear you, though, reflection. It's kind of you get to that point in your life and you're like, what am I doing? And you take stock, right, as you say.
Take stock, yeah. I've always been interested in, and possibly we can do something together on this, but I've always been interested in doing like an annual review at the end of the year. It doesn't have to be crazy big or crazy thick or anything like that, but just making some sort of like PDF document, right? Which is like listing the highlights of this year. What have you done? What do you want to focus on next year? What didn't you do so well? I've always been really interested in this. And I think every year, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make this annual review and I'm going to make it look a little bit pretty. It's going to be nice. And I just never end up doing it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the concept of it, though, because something I do is I do a lot of journaling, and I get a lot of this stuff down, and it's very raw when you're journaling, but it's there, and you've got it down. And I did, because it was my birthday a couple of months ago, and I did a 10-year letter to myself.
Oh,
yeah. So I wrote a letter for my 40-year-old self. And, sort of, hey, how's it going, Cody, sort of thing. But, just sort of like to connect the dots, because I'm definitely going to read back on that, if I make it that far.
Where did you store it? How are you storing it?
Just on my computer, but I mean, I've got it all backed up. So, I mean, I have a I use Scrivener, which is like a writing software, so you can keep notes and things. But yeah, I do a lot of journaling, and I do find, I mean, it's, again, maybe this is one of those things that I do that's kind of a bit funny, but like I do like to just kind of sometimes jump in there and just write little notes to myself and go, this is how I'm feeling today. Kind of just get it out on paper or into the computer. Because you sometimes think, oh man, something. I used to get really upset about this, or I was feeling really excited about this, and then you go back and you can read it, and you can kind of remember what it was in a way that you'd otherwise forget. I was sharing this with Rena actually the other day, but I also, when I was back in uni, back in the old days, I remember I had this system that I developed of like, having like an A4 piece of paper, and like every day I'd like write out what I needed to do. And then I'd also have like a little comment section down the bottom. And you could have just done it on a phone, but I remember I really enjoyed doing it physically on pen and paper, because it's like something that you take with you, and then you could sort of stash them once you're done. And we started doing it again actually recently, and it's like, okay, what's my A task, what's my B task, etc. And the act of writing that out the night before, it's kind of quite powerful, and then you have the comment section down the bottom, and you can just put little notes about stuff that happened, or inspiration that you had. And you also,
and
by making it analog, and I had like a format. I remember actually I went all the way and I like designed a little template that I could print off and then write it straight in. Nice. But by going analog, it like, I mean, I love doing stuff like that because it just allows your brain the freedom to think and to wander and
to slow down. Yeah.
And if you've got it on your phone and stuff, it's like, you're just because I mean, when you really see it, you sit, and you're on a bus or a train and you're like, everyone is on their phone. Every single person, no one's looking around. It's like, man, this is not really what we were designed for.
It's really interesting because on the London Underground we don't get signal. There's no 3G, there's no Wi-Fi, no nothing on the Underground. So I have noticed a big difference here. When people are on the Underground, they are just sitting, looking around, reading the paper. But Tokyo, of course, the Underground had Wi-Fi, it had 3G, 4G or whatever. Everybody was on their phones watching videos, playing games and stuff like this. But I just like to say that I just completely remembered that at the moment I've been doing a 5-year diary.
Oh yeah,
and I highly recommend this for anybody. So you can buy them if you want one already made. You can buy it, and it's just like you open it up, and then on each page, 5 separate areas where you can write for each year. And then you just go through the book, and then when you get to the end of the first year, you just cycle back to the beginning and start writing in year 2. And what it does for me is that it allows me to do exactly what you just said, look back at last year, and then in 2 years' time I can look back at 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and sort of see how was I feeling, what was I having problems with, what was great back then. I really recommend a 5-year diary. I do it on the computer. I've set up a way to do it, but even if you did it like analog, there's loads of beautiful books you can buy. It's fantastic.
I think it is important, man. And I think on that note, I'm a big fan of self-development and kind of cultivating the soul in a way. And what I came to realize is sometimes what happens is the outside form of your situation, of yourself or whatever, it might not seem like it's changing really much, but underneath there's actually a lot of structural changes taking place. And so, I think structurally, even with this Nocturnes project, structurally it's in the same universe as Danshi and some of these other works, but conceptually, and I think underneath, the framework for it is just so much more evolved, and it's where I'm at now, basically. And that's taken, it's never going to just be A, B, C, D. It's like you got these periods of plateaus where you feel like nothing's happening, but it is actually happening. And then there's suddenly, something happens and you're suddenly on another plateau. And I think that is really important. And it's easy to forget because you tend to think of yourself in the present, and then you look back on who you were and you're like, it's easy to forget how you were at that time, as you say. So man, definitely, I think it is important to journal, to kind of note stuff down, and just to zoom out sometimes,
Yeah, I think so. Do a bit of reflection, zooming out. Love it.
Yeah, it's good to catch up.
It was. It's been far too long, and I think we should do another one soon.
I was thinking we need to sort of formalize the name of this thing because we were calling it what? Conversations Late at Night.
But it's only late at night for you. It's very early morning for me.
I think we could, if I was to put my marketing hat on, I think we could call it Late Night. I like conversations as well. It's kind of a nice way of saying it. But I'm wondering, late night talks, late night conversations, something, 3 words, something. So I'll have a think about that. But maybe we can make it a little bit more regular, man.
I'd like to.
I'm jumping on a podcast with a local guy, with 2 people next week, and I'm going to just kind of have a chat with him as well. That's we're just going to be talking about some creative sort of processes and things, but I'm going to see how they do it. And I'm just because I believe because I've been getting back into podcasts recently. I'm like, man, there's stuff here, there's stuff that you're doing, the stuff that we're doing that I kind of want to share with people more broadly. And we've just been it's been just for our Patreon people as of lately, but I think maybe we could make it a bit more broader potentially.
I think so. Yeah, we should get on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And,
the boatcast. Yeah,
boatcast. Yeah, that's quite cool.
Oh, okay. Can your boat actually move, or is it just it's moored somewhere?
It can. It is currently moored. It would take a bit of effort to get it going, but it can. Yeah, it can move. So we sailed it, or my auntie bought it basically, and she sailed it here from up north. But all the boats are so I've got about 6 or 7 boats next to me on the pontoon. All of them can move, and they can go out on day trips and come back if they want. But most people just live here. Honestly, the lady right next to me, she just lives on her boat for her whole life. And it's a small boat, it's amazing.
One question: What's it like going to sleep on one of those things? Like, does it rock you to sleep, or is it like?
It does. I fall asleep with no problems whatsoever. The creak, the sound of the boat creaking is really nice, and especially if it's raining, the rain and the creaking is really beautiful to
I'll tell you, man,
sleep.
The best night's sleep I've ever had in my life was I was staying out at my dad's place, and he had this like kind of like a camper van thing on the back of his truck, like his ute, and it was you kind of climb in and then you go to the very top. So above the cabin of the pickup truck was the little sleeping area. And so it was only probably, I want to say like maybe a meter or 80 centimeters. Like you kind of had to slide into it, and it was all fiberglass. And so, normally there's no echoes, but you could almost it was like this isolation chamber, and it was pitch black, and, you could just hear your own breathing kind of echoing, and it was pitch black dark and super comfortable. And I remember it was just like, it's just falling into this deep sleep, and I've never had anything like that just in a normal room. So I imagine boats are probably a little bit like that as well. But
yeah, absolutely. I love the rocking. I mean, most people, I don't know, other people might not like it, but I kind of find it therapeutic a little bit.
Yeah. All right, man. So look, I think we might leave it there.
Yes.
But I am keen to catch up again soon and sort of talk to you a bit more regularly, and just kind of, I think we're starting to find some themes here that are sort of common and
high level stuff.
And we are, and I think also I am keen to get some more questions and thoughts just from our Patreon people.
Yes,
so,
please. If you have any questions, please.
Otherwise, I'll catch you next time, man.
Sweet, man. Really appreciate it. It was great to catch up. See ya.